Good day, everyone. My name is John Marcus Rain, and for today's topic is all about population and sample. The objective of this report is define and identify the difference between population and sample and the type of sample. I will also define the appraise, use, and interpret the different tools used for data analysis. So when we say population, a population refers to any collection of specified group of human beings or of non-human entities such as objects, educational institution, time units, geographical areas, prices, or with salaries drawn by individuals. Some statisticians called it universe. A population containing a finite number of individuals, members, or units is a class. A population with infinite number of members is known as infinite population. The population of pressures of various points in the atmosphere is an example of infinite population. The population of concrete individual is called as existent population, while as the collection of all possible ways in which an event can materialize as the hypothetical population. All the 400 students of 10 class of participant school is an example of existent type of population, and the population of head and tail obtained by tossing a coin of infinite numbers of time is an example of hypothetical population. The population is properly defined so that there is no ambiguity as to whether a given unit belongs to the population. For example, in a survey of achievement in mathematics, a researcher will have to define the population of students by age or by grade, and if necessary, he will also specify the type of schools, the geographical area, and the academic year for which the data will be collected. Inferences concerning a population cannot be drawn until the nature of the units that comprise it is clearly identified. If a population is not properly defined, as a researcher does not know what units to consider when selecting the people of sample. A population is the entire aggregation of items from which samples can be drawn is known as a population. In sample, the population may refer to the units from which the sample is drawn. A population of interest may be the universe of the nations or cities. This is one of the first things that the analyst need to define the properly while conducting a basis in research, and N represents the size of the population. This is the definition of populations. Population parameters, it is the statistics such as averages and standards deviations, the median, mode, etc., and the population parameters. When we say bias, it is a term which refers to how far the average statistic lies from the parameter. It is estimating that is the error arises when estimating the quantity, or a statistic is the bias it, if it is calculated in such a way that is systematically different from the population parameter or interest. And unbiasedness is this means that the average of large set of unbiased measurements will be close to the session. This means that repeated measurements would be close to one another but not necessarily to true value. And when we say randomization, it is the location or patients to both treatment and control groups in a random manner. This enables the minimizations or selection bias. And when we say block randomization, when participants are allocated to two groups as blocks of 2, 4, 6, or 8, and so on, and both groups contains equal numbers or blocks at each time interval. What is sampling? We're going to define sampling and the techniques and types of sampling. In simple words, sampling consists of obtaining information from a portion of a larger group or an universe. Elements are selected in a manner that yield almost all information about the whole universe. If and when selected according to some scientific principles and procedures. When we say census, it is a complete study of all the elements present in the population is known as a census. The National Population Census is an example of census survey. Sample. A sample is a selection of units from the entire group called the population of universe of interest. It is the subset of a larger population. Sample design. Sample design is divided into two, a non-probability samples and non-probability samples. Under the non-probability samples is the convenience, judgmental, quota, and snowball. While on the other hand, the probability samples is a sample random, stratified, and clustered systematically. And we will discuss it. So non-probability sampling, it is the probability of any particular member being chosen for the sample is unknown. While in convenience sampling, it is the sampling procedures of obtaining the people or units that are most conveniently available. And accidental sampling, it is a type of non-probability sampling, as I said, which involves the sample being drawn from the part of the population which is close to hand. And quota sampling is uh, is that population is first segmented into mutually inclusive. In quota sampling, the selection of the sample is not random or subgroups. In the quota sampling, the interviewers are instructed to interview a specified number of persons from each category in studying people's status of living, condition, preferences, opinions, and attitudes. Next is judgment sampling. These samples in which the selection criteria are based on personal judgments that the element is representative of the population under study. The example of this judgment sampling is in test marketing, a judgment is made as to which cities would constitute the best ones for testing the marketability of a new product. Next is snowball sampling. These samples in which selection of additional respondent is based on the referrals from the initial respondents. These initial respondents are selected by probability methods. Additional respondents are obtained from information provided by the initial respondents. Probability sampling. Every member of the population has known non-zero probability of being selected. Next is simple random sampling. Random sampling means the arrangement of the condition in such a manner that every item of the whole universe from which we are to select the sample shall have the same chance of being selected as any other item. Among all the probability sampling procedures, random sampling is not most basic and least complicated. Next is systematic sampling. Prepare a list of the elements in the universe and number them. This list can be accordingly to the alphabetical order as in records, etc. Then, from the list, every third or every eighth or any other number in the list like manner can be selected. For these methods, population needs to be homogeneous. This method is frequently used because it is simple, direct, and expensive, also known as a pattern serial or chain sampling. Say stratified sampling. It is when the population is divided into different stratas or groups, and when samples are selected from each stratum by single random sampling procedure, we call it as a stratified random sampling. Next is accuracy sampling process. It's defining the target population. It also specifying the sampling frame and specifying the sample units, selecting of the sampling methods, determine of the sample size, specifying the sample plan, and selecting the sample. The advantages of sampling is it helps to collect vital information more quickly and it is helped to make estimates of the characteristic of the total population in a shorter time. Sampling cost much of time and money is saved at each stage of research. Sampling techniques often increase the accuracy of data. With small samples, it becomes easier to check the accuracy of the data. From the administrative points of view, the sampling becomes easier. Problem of hiring the staff, task of the training and supervising will become easier. And the disadvantage of sampling is not flexible in a situation where knowledge about each unit is needed. The example given is the estimation of national income for the current year. The reliability of information depends upon the preservativeness of the sample of the total population. Most of sampling techniques requires the service of the sampling expert or statistician. Hospital patients may different than those in the community. Volunteers are not typical or non-volunteers. And that's all. Thank you. I hope you understand.